Hello students, welcome again to a new session at Educators Plus. I am Akarshi, your English faculty at Educators Plus. So students, as you know that we have completed most of our literatures when it comes to the UGC net syllabus. So we have done British literature, American literature, post-colonial literature, Indian literature and European literature part 1. Okay, so I have discussed important writers, their works, and we have practiced some MCQs also, that how to apply that theory into MCQs. Okay, so in this particular session I will be discussing about a particular set of writers. Yes, particular set of writers that are known as theatre of absurd. ठीक है, theatre पहले तो मैं आपको theatre of absurd समझाऊंगी and उसके फिर writer समझाऊंगी that are associated with theatre of absurd and their important works. Okay, so students, if you are ready, then please write yes in the chat box, and if I'm audible and visible to you properly, you can let me know in the chat box, please. Okay, I want your participation during the class so that we can make the most out of this particular session. Okay, so let's begin the class now. Okay, so now those who are watching, can you just let me know in the chat box what do you understand by the theatre of absurd? आपने कभी सुना है नाम theatre of absurd? Please type yes in the chat box if you have heard, and if you know some writers that are associated with the theatre of absurd, then also you can just type yes in the chat box. Okay, if you know about theatre of absurd and if you know the writers of theatre of absurd, you can just type in the yes in the chat box. If no, then please pay attention to this class, and I promise you that after this class you will be definitely be thorough with what is theatre of absurd and the writers associated with theatre of absurd. Okay, yes, good morning. Okay, so now first of all, please remember that there was one of the writer whose name was Nish. Okay, जिसका नाम था Nish, NITETZCHE. Okay, CHE. The writer's name was Nietzsche. Okay, and he was one of the pioneers of the theatre of absurd, and he declared in his work Zarathustra. Okay, he has written the work Zarathustra. ठीक है, उसने एक वर्क लिखा था ज़रूस्ट्रा. उसमें उसने क्या बोला था? उसमें बोला था कि गॉड इज डेड एंड द वर्ल्ड हैज बिकम डिसजॉइंटेड एंड मीनिंगलेस. ठीक है, तो ही वाज द फर्स्ट वन टू एक्चुअली स्टार्ट दिस नोशन दैट लाइफ इज मीनिंगलेस. We have no God in this world, God is dead and the world is very disjointed and meaningless. Please remember, Nietzsche was the first writer to associate or to propagate this idea that God is dead. And किस वर्क में बोला था? उसने बोला था ज़रूस्ट्रा में. प्लीज रिमेंबर दिस वर्क, ये आपका एग्जाम में क्वेश्चन आ चुका है. ठीक है, एंड उसमें क्या बोला था कि दैट वर्ल्ड हैज बिकम डिसजॉइंटेड, मीनिंगलेस, फ्रेगमेंटेड हो चुका है. लोगों के लाइफ में मीनिंग बचा नहीं है, and people are having a no more charm to live a very meaningful life. Okay, and this notion of absurd condition became more heightened and meaningless with the writings of Nietzsche and the catalytic destruction in the two world wars. ठीक है, जो World War I, yes देवेंद्र गुड मॉर्निंग, जो World War I और World War II हुआ था. ओके, World War I एंड जो World War II हुआ था, जो उसमें जो भी लाइफ में, जिसकी भी लाइफ में डिस्ट्रक्शन हुआ था. ओके, देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ डिस्ट्रक्शन कॉज, कैटलिटिक डिस्ट्रक्शन था, वर्ल्ड वॉर था, पीपल हैव लॉस्ट द मीनिंग ऑफ द लाइफ, पीपल हैव लॉस्ट द डियर वंस. उन्होंने लाइफ अपनी पूरी डिस्ट्रॉय होते देखी, डिस्ट्रक्टेड होते हुए देखी है. तो उसकी वजह से भी पीपल के लाइफ में एक नोशन आ गया था, लाइफ इज मीनिंगलेस. व्हाट इफ यू बिल्ड एन एम्पायर, व्हाट इफ यू डू स्टडी हार्ड, बट इफ योर थिंग्स गेट डिस्ट्रॉयड विद वॉर्स लाइक वर्ल्ड वॉर्स, then you should not strive towards perfection. You should believe that life is meaningless and आपको life उसी notion के basis में आपको you should live that life. Okay, and which culminated the writings about also the existentialist philosophy. Okay, again this philosophy says that life is meaningless. It is you who can paint your life with meanings. Okay, who can just derive the meanings in your life, otherwise the outer world is totally useless to derive meaning in your life. Okay, and this particular theatre of absurd is also categorized through the fragmented dialogues, boredom and human life and disjointed action. Okay, so आपको देखने को मिलेगा इसमें fragmented dialogues होते हैं. ओके, सो उसमें जैसे सपोज मैंने बोला कम प्लीज हैव अ सीट ओवर हियर, उसमें लाइक दिस यू विल फाइंड कम डैश डैश डैश, दिस काइंड ऑफ अ डायलॉग विल बी देयर. फ्रेगमेंटेड डायलॉग, छोटे छोटे डायलॉग्स होते हैं, इन फ्रेगमेंट्स होते हैं. देयर आर नो कंप्लीट डायलॉग्स in this particular in the works of the absurd writers. Why? Because they used to believe that life is meaningless. तो आपको वो dialogue meaningful क्यों दें when they have a belief that life is meaningless? So that's why they are having a fragmented dialogue. It is you who can derive the meaning from that dialogue. Okay, and there was a boredom of human life. Okay, life is not colorful, life is not meaningful. आपको boredom दिखेगा वहाँ पे. Okay, people are living the normal routine of life. ठीक है, उनके लाइफ में कुछ भी ऐसा समथिंग एंथुजियाज्म नहीं है, कुछ हैप्पीनेस नहीं है. दे आर फॉर्मिंग अ नॉर्मल रूटीन एंड जस्ट दे आर लिविंग द लाइफ फॉर द सेक ऑफ लिविंग द लाइफ. ओके, दे आर नॉट एंजॉइंग द लाइफ. ओके, सो देयर वाज द बोर्डम ऑफ लाइफ and there are disjointed action. Okay, come and forth of action. Some person is even suppose they are opening the pin and closing it. That what is the meaning of that action we don't know, but that person is doing that. So these are disjointed actions. आप एक action को दूसरे action से relate नहीं कर सकते हो because उनका एक aberrant state दिखाया जाता है कि the person is not into totally in senses because he has left the notion to actually find the meaning in their life. Okay, so you can say that fragmented dialogues दिखेंगे, boredom of human life होगा. Okay, and there will also be disjointed actions. Okay, so these are some of the characteristics of the absurd writers, theaters, works. Okay, and ये सब आपको सारे works में उनकी देखने को ये चीज मिलेगी. These are very common themes. Okay, and please remember that Nietzsche has written Zarathustra, and which is actually known as a pioneer work in which he has said that God is dead and the life is meaningless and the life has become disjointed also. Which series are you asking for, Abhinesh? Like this is a series which is actually being continued for the March 2023 NET exam, and after that I will be starting a full-fledged course on the app for the June exam. Okay, so if you want to just enroll for that, then let me know. Okay, fine. So this was about the theater of absurd. So Nietzsche, Zarathustra, and this all the things you should please note down and please make a note of it. These are the very important themes. Now the question comes. ये आपका बहुत ही ज़्यादा पूछा हुआ questions आपके exam में, that who has coined the term theater of absurd? Okay, so please remember it is Martin Aslin. ठीक है, Martin Aslin is the one who has coined the term theater of absurd. ये आपके बहुत बार क्वेश्चन पूछा जाता है कि who has coined the term theater of absurd. Okay, after European, I think I will be starting with literary theory. Okay, so yes, so Martin Aslin was a Hungarian-born English writer or dramatist or a critic, and he is best known for coining the term theater of absurd in the work theater of absurd. ठीक है, उसने एक work लिखा था theater of absurd, and the title of that particular work has come out as the name of the movement, that is theater of absurd. Okay, and the writer of the tradition of theater of absurd were like Harold Pinter, Francis Kafka, and Jean Genet. Okay, Jean-Paul Sartre and Malam. ठीक है, और Eugene Ionesco. So all these are the names of the writers of theater of absurd. कौन से writers थे? Eugene Ionesco, Harold Pinter. Okay, Eugene Ionesco, Harold Pinter, then Franz Kafka. Okay, then Jean Genet, Jean-Paul Sartre, okay, and Mallarmé. These were the writers of theater of absurd. So please make a note. Thank you, Avnish. Okay, so please make a note of all these writers. These all writers are associated with theatre of absurd, and Martin Esslin has coined the term theatre of absurd. In his it has been coined after his publication of his book Theatre of Absurd. Okay, and these are the writers who are associated with theatre of absurd, and these writers significantly explored the complexity of the human condition in the mechanized world and the inability of the human mind to connect with the outside वर्ल्ड. ठीक है, सो इसमें एक ह्यूमन कंडीशन को पोर्ट्रे करता है कि लाइक ह्यूमन आप एक इंडिविजुअल हो, ओके, एंड यू आर नॉट एबल टू कनेक्ट विद द अदर इंडिविजुअल दैट इज एब्सोल्युटली इन योर लाइफ. ठीक है, जब आप सिमिलर हो, जब आप एक वर्ल्ड में रह रहे हो, देन यू मस्ट बी एबल टू कनेक्ट विद अदर पीपल. बट इफ यू आर नॉट एबल टू कनेक्ट विद द आउटसाइड वर्ल्ड out of the four walls of your home, then that's the absurdity which is being your absurd world in which you are living in. Okay, so the person in the have a very absurd human condition under the theatre of absurd, and they are not able to connect having a mindset with the outside world. Okay, and the concept of their writings revolved around the distinguishing of the world, emphasizing the constant suffering of existence, the theme that is greatly which is evolved in you can say that the myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. Okay, so उसमें क्या था, life is meaningless. आप existence को एक meaning दे रहे हो by doing the absurd things. ठीक है, but in general your life is totally meaningless. It doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't have any foundation, and you are living life just for the sake of living the life. Okay, and ये best example किस में दिया गया था, in the myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. Myth of Sisyphus में क्या था, Sisyphus was given a punishment to actually place a rolling stone at the top of the slanting mountain. But if you see that if you just roll the stone in a slanting mountain, ultimately it will come back. You will go again, it will come back. So now you are doing some action which is not possible. Okay, so आपकी life meaningless है. You are just finding the meaning in something that is actually totally meaningless, right? So that was the kind of condition that has been portrayed in the these writers' work, and the constant suffering of humans are also being portrayed in these work. Yes, I am doing that. Okay, fine. So this was about the theatre of absurd. I hope you have understood what is the theatre of absurd and what are which writers are associated with theatre of absurd. Okay, so please make a special note, because अगर आप previous years questions जाके देखोगे previous years papers में, so आप देखोगे कि theatre of absurd से questions आते ही आते. This is a topic which cannot be overlooked for your exams. ठीक है, हर एक पेपर में देखोगे स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम 2012-11 वहां पे भी आपके थिएटर ऑफ एब्सर्ड से क्वेश्चंस आए थे. सो यू कैन सी दैट ये टॉपिक कितना पुराना और कितना चला आ रहा है. ठीक है, सो प्लीज पे स्पेशल अटेंशन टू द थिएटर ऑफ एब्सर्ड. Also, please remember the writers of theatre of absurd constantly challenge the notion of time and space, as their characters fail to find their self within the circumstance and boundaries set by the world. So, आपको जब इनके plays पढ़ोगे, when you will read the works of these writers, you will find the same things occurring over there. That the person or the character which is living life is not able to relate to the other life. जैसे आप एक normal surrounding होती है, normal boundaries होती है, the characters are living in that boundaries, but they have constant chaos going inside them. They're constantly finding their identity, where do they exist in their boundaries. Okay, and उसका क्यों, इसका सबसे बड़ा reason क्या था, the 2 world wars. Okay, the angry and man, जो kind of a concept which emerged, it also emerged after the World War II. Okay, and you please remember that Harold Pinter, who was actually a writer of a Nobel Prize winning author, and he has written the work Room. And in this work, you can see that there is this work is the finest example of the portrayal of tragic sense of being, where exposure to outside world is seen as a threat to the self. आपको जैसे सपोज कभी कभार आपको लगता है ना कि I should just sit alone, I should not talk to anyone, and when you are sad, when you are depressed, you don't like to be in contact with any person. Why? Because you have a fear of getting exposed. Okay, you have a fear to be vulnerable to the people who will be surrounding you at that point of time. Okay, and that was actually the fear of the absurd writer's character as well. उनको क्या लगता था कि that if they will interact, if they will have a meaningful conversation, if they will form relationships, this will be actually the exposure of their self to the outside world, and this will be a threat to your individuality. And that's why they never used to have some meaningful conversation, they never used to have some meaningful relationship, and they never used to have some meaningful actions in their works, because if they thought if they were having a meaning, that will be actually the resultant of the exposure to outside world and will be a threat to the self. Okay, and also in the Samuel Beckett's writing, Beckett expressed a very deeper layer of absurdity, where absurdity is seen as the way to escape from the world. ठीक है, हैरल्ड पिंटर के वर्क्स में क्या था, उसको लगता था कि absurdity is a way to actually prevent yourself from getting threatened from the outside world and not to expose yourself to the outside world. But Samuel Beckett has a different view. He thought he used to show the absurd condition in his plays. Why? Because he thinks that the character who are actually suffering, मैंने बताया था human का suffering बहुत ज़्यादा common होती थी उनके plays में, the actors or the characters who are suffering, they can escape from the harsh realities of life. So absurdity was a motive to escape. You can understand, सब में absurdity होती थी, सब में ही ऐसी conditions होती थी, but what meaning you are actually conveying to through that condition depends upon the writer to writer. और Beckett में क्या होता था, ये चीज एक escape होती थी from the harsh realities of the life. Is it clear? I hope you are understanding what I am teaching, because if you're not, you can just let me know in the chat box. I will be just replying your answer. Okay, and please remember the writers like Jean Genet, Eugene Ionesco attacked the values and system of connecting the absurdity with the cruelty and the power centers. ठीक है, तो उनके लिए क्या होता था कि like the whatever cruelty has been bestowed upon them from the powerful authorities, the absurdity was again a kind of escape from these conditions. Okay. Okay. Now another worldwide influence was the epic drama of the German writer or dramatist, we can say Bertolt Brecht. Bertolt Brecht का मैंने last I think mock test में मैंने question कराया था epic theater का, ठीक है. So epic theater has been propounded by Bertolt Brecht, but who has coined the term epic theater? It has been coined by, जैसे theater of absurd has been coined by Martin Ethelin. Epic theater has been coined by Erwin Piscator. Okay, please remember these names, who has coined which kind of theater, because again these questions are asked in your exams. Okay, so Bertolt Brecht is known as the propounder of that epic theater, and he originated the concept of alienation effect. And what do you mean by alienation effect? कि जब this is suppose we go to watch a movie, ठीक है, अब now suppose if you have gone to watch Pathan, okay, suppose, okay, so if you are a SRK fan, now your childhood has been fed with the the fame of SRK which he has to have in your childhood. ठीक है, जब when you have a personal kind of a connection to that actor Shah Rukh Khan, you have a personal emotion attached to it, because अब जब उसकी जो 90s में जो movies आती थी, you used to watch and used to connect to that kind of a world which has been portrayed in his movies. Now if you have gone to watch Pathan, you are critiquing that word movie by actually your emotions, based upon your emotion, what connect you have Shah Rukh Khan, or what actually the movie was doing justice to the plot which has been portrayed through that movie. ठीक है, so this was actually the concept of alienation effect. When you just go to watch a play or a movie, you should not judge a play or a movie based upon your emotions. ठीक है, either that emotions can be a good or a fruitful emotions, or that emotions can be bad. Maybe some some drunkard has been portrayed in that work, and suppose you have been into contact some drunkard and you had a bad experience with that. Now when watching a drunkard on the screen, your bad experience will again come into your memory and you will feel bad. ठीक है, it can kind of give you a bad feeling. And suppose a good event has happened in your life. Now the same event has been, or some sort of event has been portrayed on the in the movie, you will be able to relate to that particular event. Why? And it will bring your happy memories back. Now you will be judging that play based upon your emotions at that point of time. So the Brecht said that one should follow alienation effect. You should watch a movie or a play based on for the sake of watching it. Okay, you should not associate your personal emotions, your personal thought, your personal mindset to that particular movie. ठीक है, आपको उसको सिर्फ देखना है, आपको उसको जज करना है through the actions. Okay, and you should maintain a wall between the real world and the real world. So this was a kind of concept which was actually put forward by Bertolt Brecht. And please remember, Erwin Piscator has coined the term epic theater, and Bertolt Brecht is known for the alienation effect. Okay, and the audience should identify with the play's characters and become engrossed in its plot, and the playwright should break the illusion of reality through the alienation effect. Okay, so you should watch a play for the sake of watching it, and you should not judge a play or critique a play based upon your personal emotions and sentiments. Is it clear? So this was a theme which was put forward by Bertolt Brecht, and alienation effect was the one which was a theme which has been propagated or which has been professed by this Bertolt Brecht in his plays. Okay. So I have told you what is absurd theatre, who has coined the term absurd theatre, the writers associated with absurd theatre. I have also told you about epic theatre, who has coined the term epic theatre, and the writer which is associated with epic theatre. There is one more kind of theatre which is known as theatre of cruelty. Okay, there is one more theatre, that is theatre of cruelty, and who has been associated with theatre of cruelty, that is Antonin Artaud. Okay, Antonin Artaud is the one who has propagated or who has made famous the theatre of cruelty, and he defied realism and rationalism. But unlike Brecht, his theory of the theatre of cruelty sought of mystical communism with the audience through you can say the incantations and sounds, physical gestures and strange scenery. Okay, so वो cruelty दिखाता था life में कि life is totally meaningless and how people are suffering. So human suffering को Antonin Artaud used to portray in the theatres, and this suffering was enraged or was actually maximized with a lot of physical gesture, sounds, strange scenery. So this kind of a cruelty you see, and the people start panting, they move out of the theater, they start crying, they start howling, because that cruelty was something that is actually wrecking your nerves. Okay, that something gets inside your nerves, and that's why people used to see that yes, our man is a sufferer and he is suffering in this life, and that's why life is meaningless. Is it clear? Okay, now the basically the person who played the most significant role in the absorption of this modernist experiment was the Irishman Samuel Beckett. As I told you, Samuel Beckett ne bahut hi he has written a good plays in his life, and one of the such play was Waiting for Godot. And there's one famous line of Waiting for Godot, that is, nothing happens twice. This is a question of your net also, ki in which of the following word there is a line that nothing happens twice. Okay, it was in Samuel Beckett, Waiting for Godot. Okay, so this was about Samuel Beckett, and he was remember that he was a French playwright and the author of Waiting for Godot, and his plays were astonishingly known for the absurdity which has been portrayed in a lot of the writers of that time. Okay, so this was about theatre of absurd. So let's move ahead now. Now the first writer associated with theatre of absurd is Samuel Beckett. I told you he was born in Dublin. Okay, and like W.B. Yeats, Bernard Shaw, Oscar Wilde, he came from an Anglo-Irish Protestant family. Okay, so he was born in Dublin, please remember that. And who were the other Irish writer? W.B. Yeats, Bernard Shaw, Oscar Wilde, all the modernist writers. And like them, he has also came from an Anglo-Irish Protestant family. Okay, so he was in his initial days, he was a teacher, and he gave up teaching to write and produce an insightful essay on the early stages of James Joyce Finnegan Wakes. Okay, so एक James Joyce का तो वर्क था, if you remember, Finnegan Wakes. Okay, so मैंने जो आपको जेम्स जॉयस पढ़ा था, I told you about Finnegan Wake, and he has started writing the essays on the early stages of the James Joyce Finnegan Wakes, and he also worked as Joyce secretary and a translator as well. Now his first work, Assumptions. Okay, so this was the first story which was published of Samuel Beckett, that is known as Assumption, and which appeared in Transition. And what was the Transition? Transition was a periodical founded in Paris. ठीक है, तो ये story थी, it was found in a periodical named as Transitions. Okay, and it is a periodical found in Paris. Please remember this. Okay, so Assumptions was his first work, and it was a story which appeared in Transition, and it was a periodical which is founded in Paris. Okay, then his story is More Pricks Than Kicks. Okay, so it is a More Pricks, and again a story which was followed by several other works. Okay, and what were the other works? Which is Malloy, Maitland, Dies, and Unnamable. This is known as trilogy. Okay, please remember, जो ट्रायलॉजी है मिलॉय, मेलन, डाइस, अननेमेबल बाय सैमुअल बेकेट. आपके ट्रायलॉजीज से भी क्वेश्चंस आपके एग्जाम में आते हैं, सो यू शुड रिमेंबर द इंपॉर्टेंट ट्रायलॉजीज ऑफ द important or the renowned writer of your syllabus. ठीक है, so please remember Malloy, Maitland, Dies, and Unnamable. These are plays which is actually come under trilogy, and they were originally written in French. ठीक है, it was originally written in French, and later it was got translated into English. Next is An Attended Godot or Waiting for Godot. Very important work. Please make a reading of this particular work. It is a very important work of Samuel Beckett, and you should remember that it is again written in French, and it is the French title An Attended Godot, and in English it means Waiting for Godot. Okay, now you should remember there are two characters in Waiting for Godot, Lucky and Pozo. ठीक है, so as I told you that he worked, Samuel Beckett worked as a secretary to James Joyce in his early days of career. So that's why Pozo has been portrayed as a master, and the Pozo is actually James Joyce. ठीक है, James Joyce को इसमें Pozo बोला गया है, and Lucky is Samuel Beckett, that is slave. ठीक है, तो master and slave का इसमें relation दिखाए. Master is Pozo, which is actually the personification of James Joyce, and Lucky is Samuel Beckett, which is actually portrayed as slave in this particular work. Now please read Waiting for Godot. It's a very important work, and please remember Nothing Happens Twice occur in Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. Okay, now the last work is Krapp's Last Tape. Now Krapp's Last Tape is a kind of a monologue in which Krapp attempts to recapture the intensity of earlier days by listening to recordings of days when he was young. Okay, so he was actually trying to recapture the earlier days. He must have recorded when he was young some incident, and now he was listening to that incidents again to actually recapture the past moment or the earlier days. So please remember that it is a monologue. It is a monologue. Okay, any problem in Samuel Beckett? Okay, so this was about Samuel Beckett. Let's move ahead. Next is Franz Kafka. Okay, so now the Franz Kafka was a German novelist and a short story writer, and he is widely popular for fusing elements of realism and fantastic. ठीक है, तो उसके वर्क्स में आपको realism plus fantasy दिखेगी, and he is a German writer. Please remember that. Okay, and his stories typically features isolated protagonists which is faced by bizarre and incomprehensible social bureaucratic power. Okay, so again the life is meaningless wala jo theme has been portrayed in the work of Franz Kafka as well, and the protagonists face a lot of confusion in their life. Their life is bizarre, and they have very they live under the incomprehensible social bureaucratic powers which are actually indirectly ruling them. And his best known works include Der Verbandlung, that is actually means the word metamorphosis, Der Prozess, and Das Schloss, that is the castle. Okay, so please remember these are the very three important works of Franz Kafka, and इसी से ही आपके questions आते हैं. Fine. And please remember the term Kafkaesque. Okay, the term Kafkaesque was actually has entered the English language to describe situation in those in writing. ठीक है, तो मैंने बताया incomprehensible bureaucratic powers होता है, the person is suffering, okay, and they are actually they're faced by bizarre and incomprehensible situations. So this kind of themes has been portrayed in Kafka's work, and the word Kafka has been entered into English literature to actually shows the situation, and it means refers to the situation that has been shown in the Kafka's writing. Similarly, Harold Pinter is again a writer, and उसके नाम से भी Pinterest was a word that has been entered into English language to describe the situation that has been showed in the work of Harold Pinter. Okay, again the kind of a threat or kind of a confusion, delusion, or whatever is there in the Harold Pinter's work, similar situation has been used to portray Pinterest has been used to portray a situation similar to Harold Pinter works. Okay, fine. Now let's study about the Metamorphosis. The Metamorphosis is a novella. It is not a novel, it's a novella, but it is a shorter version of novel, and it has been cited as one of the seminal works of fiction of the 20th century, and is studied in colleges and universities across the Western world. Okay, and the story of this particular work begins with a traveling salesman, Gregor Samsa. So what was the name of the character? The name of the character is Gregor Samsa, who is a traveling salesman. Okay, Gregor Samsa is a traveling salesman, and the story relates to his experiences as a salesman. Now, what happens to him when one day he wakes up and he finds himself transformed? In other words, you can say that he has been metamorphosed into a large monstrous insect-like creature. Okay, so he was a normal human being, he was living a normal life, he was having a good job at traveling salesman, but one day when he woke up, he found his life totally changed. It was a kind of a nightmare for him. Why? Because his body has totally been metamorphosed into a large monstrous insect-like creature, and the people starting having an aversion towards him. Okay, and the cause of Samsa's transformation is never revealed, and Kafka never did give any explanation. I told you fragmented dialogues are there. Okay, they never provide you the meaning or the full meaningful sentences. So the reason, we don't know why he has been transformed. Okay, we don't know about that, and then Kafka as a writer never actually explained or hinted in his work. And the rest of the Kafka's novel deals with Gregor's attempts to adjust to a new condition, as he deals with being burdensome to his parents and sister as well, who are repulsed by horrible verminous creature Gregor has become. So he was so venomous, he used to so frighten, people are so frightened with him that he actually attempts to adjust or in new condition. He was not able to adjust because people have not accepted him as the kind of creature he has been transformed. So this was about the novel The Metamorphosis. Next is the trial. Now this trial is about a protagonist known as K. Sorry, this trial is a novel which is a protagonist, or you can say that Joseph K. Joseph K was the name of the protagonist, and who unexpectedly got arrested by the two unidentified agents from an you can say that unspecified agency. ठीक है, तो unexpectedly arrest हुआ था. किससे arrest हुआ था? Two unidentified agents, and from where these agents belong to? They belong to unspecified agency for an unspecified crime. So nothing was revealed. कौन सा crime था, क्यों arrest हुआ था, किस reason से arrest हुआ था, कहाँ से वो belong करते थे, nothing was revealed. So this was a main feature of Kafka, that he never used to reveal this, give the full meaning to the actions or the situations which occurred in his works. Okay, and the nature of the crime revealed neither to him nor to the reader. And like Kafka, other works, or you can say novels, the trial has never completed, although it does conclude with the chapter which brought the novel to the end. So like Kafka never finishes his work, never finishes the action, similarly this work is also the same sort. Okay, next is the castle. Now the castle is about a protagonist known as K. ग्रेगर सैम्सा, मेटामॉर्फोसिस, जोसेफ के ट्रायल ऑन कासल में क्या नाम था उसका? कैसल में देयर वाज अ कैरेक्टर नेम्ड के, जस्ट के. सी, इवन द नेम इज नॉट कंप्लीट. ओके, सो दैट्स व्हाई उसमें वो हर चीज में एक मीनिंगलेस चीज डालता था, एंड दैट वाज अ मेन फीचर ऑफ द एब्सर्ड writers. And he arrives in a village and struggles to gain access to the mysterious authority who you can say that who governed it from a castle. Okay, and Kafka died before finishing this work, but suggested it would end with K driving back to his village. Okay, so again a kind of a mystery was there, that who were the two mysterious authorities who was governing that village, and K was very curious about that particular authorities. Okay, so this was all about the works of Franz Kafka. I hope you have understood all the works. Please make a reading of all the 3 works because they are very important from an examination point of view. Okay, and please like the sessions to mark your attendance. Next. Okay, next is Edward Albee. Now this is a very interesting writer, and please remember that he is an American playwright who is being associated with theatre of absurd. He is an American playwright, okay, and he has written works such as The Zoo Story, The Sandbox, Who's Afraid of Virginia, Was the Goat, or Who is Sylvia. Okay, so please remember the Zoo Story is a one-act play. Okay, it is a one-act play. Okay, so the Zoo Story is a one-act play which concerns with the 2 characters. And who were the 2 characters? They were Peter and Jerry. Okay, the Zoo Story is a one-act play which deals with the 2 characters, Peter and Jerry, who meet on a park bench. Okay, and Peter is a middle-class, publishing executive. Jerry is isolated and a disheartened man, desperate to have a meaningful conversation with another human being. You can see that people are so frustrated with the meaningless in their life, with the kind of absurd situations in their life, that they are striving to have a meaningful conversation. Okay, so that was a kind of situation which was portrayed with the help of the character Jerry. Now the play ends with Peter's effort to escape from Jerry, who's dying. You can say the words are, "Oh my God." Okay, so when the Jerry died, he uttered the phrase name as oh my God, and this was the story about Peter and Jerry. It is concerned with a single day, and that's why it is a one-act play. Is it clear? Okay, next is the Sandbox. Now the Sandbox story begins with mommy and daddy bringing grandma from city and placing her in the sandbox. Okay, so there was a mommy and daddy, there was the name of the character. They bring grandma from the city and they place her in the sandbox, and the young man in the angel of death performing calisthenics that suggests that the beating of wings and moves closer to grandma, and this actually with this kind of a ritual, the play ends with grandma closing her eyes. So this was about Sandbox. Next is Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Now the name must be very, kind of enticing. You must be thinking that it is related to something about Virginia Woolf, but has nothing to do with the author Virginia Woolf. Whereas this is the play which examines the breakdown of the marriage of the middle class couple. And what was the name of this couple? Martha and George. Okay, their marriage was not a happy marriage and they was on the verge of getting broken down. Okay, Martha and George were the name of the couple, and what happens that late one evening after a very kind of a party, okay, they receive an uninviting younger couple. And what was the name of this couple? Nick and Honey. ठीक है. Martha and George were the couple whose life was not happy because their marriage was not happy, and they actually got encountered with another couple, yeah, which was younger to them, that is Nick and Honey, as guests, and draw them into their bitter and frustrated relationships. Okay, and this play is, please remember, this play is written in 3 acts. The first act is fun and games. Next is wall per jisnach. Okay, fun and games, wall per jisnach, and the exorcism was the 3 parts of this work. Okay, so यहाँ पे दो couples की बात हुई है, Martha and George, Nick and Honey, and the Martha and George were the older couple, Nick and Honey were the younger couple, and with the arrival of them into their life as guests, more troubles has been created into their life, and their relationship became more frustrated. And please remember, this play has been divided into 3 parts: fun and games, Walper Nichach, and exorcism. Is this clear? Okay, now the next verse is the goat and or who is Sylvia. Now this is the tale of a married middle-aged architect, and what was the name of that architect? It was Martin. Okay, Martin was the name of the architect. He was a middle-aged man and an architect, and his name was Martin. Okay, and he has a wife, and the wife's name is Stevie, and he has a son also whose name is Billy. ठीक है, मार्टिन वॉज अ मिडिल एज आर्किटेक्ट, तो उसकी वाइफ का नाम क्या था? स्टेवी, और उसका सन का नाम क्या था? बिली, एंड हुज लाइफ क्रम्बल्स व्हेन मार्टिन फॉल्स इन लव विद अ गोट. ओके, एंड द प्ले फोकसेस ऑन द लिमिट्स ऑफ एन ostensibly liberal society. Okay, so again we find it absurd that a man has fallen into love with a goat. So that kind of absurdity has been portrayed in Who is Sylvia or the Goat, and who has fallen in love with goat? Martin. Okay, though he has a family, but ultimately he finds happiness in falling in love with a goat. So that kind of absurdity has been portrayed in the work The Goat or Who's Sylvia by Edward Albee. Is it clear? Okay, now moving further, now we'll study about Albert Camus. Now, Albert Camus was an Algerian and a French philosopher, and he is based in France. Okay, and his views about the absurd theater give rise to the philosophy, again to the known as absurdism. So as you know, this is also absurd writer, and he has given rise to the theory of absurdism. Okay, and he wrote in his essay, and what was the name of the essay? Rebel. Rebel was the name of the essay, that his whole life was devoted to finding meaning or opposing the philosophy of nihilism. I told you what is nihilism. Nihilism means that when you just give up the moral principles, the moral rules, and you say that life is meaningless, life has no meaning. So that kind of a theory is nihilism, and he has propounded this theory or the philosophy of nihilism, and he did not consider himself to be an existentialist, though he was included into the writer of that existentialist philosophy. Okay, and he was a Nobel Prize in literature. Please remember that he won a Nobel Prize in literature. Now, as I told you, his first work was essay, which is a very book length long essay, which treats both the metaphysical and you can say the modernist elements or the historical development of rebellion and revolution in society, especially Western Europe. So it is a kind of a revolution which has brought into the lives of the people, and it is actually deals especially in the lives of the people in Western Europe. Now, the myth of Sisyphus. This is a very important work, the myth of Sisyphus. Why? Because it is something which actually defines the word absurd. Okay, because of the Sisyphus task which he has been given to. Okay, so the myth of Sisyphus is a work by Albert Camus, and in this particular essay, Camus introduces the philosophy of absurd. Okay, man's futile search for meaning, unity and clarity in the face of unintelligible world devoid of God and eternal truth of value. ठीक है, तो उसने क्या कहता है कि if the man is searching for meaning, the unity, the stability, the clarity in his life, then his search is totally futile, his search is totally meaningless, and he should be believer of the fact that the world is devoid of God. I told you who has propounded this world. Zarathustra में निश ने दिया था ये thing, the world is devoid of God. A similar concept has been followed by Albert Camus in his work Myth of Sisyphus also, and he says that one should not have eternal truths or values. And the final chapter of this particular work compares the absurdity of man's life with the situation of Sisyphus. I told you he was a Greek mythological figure who was condemned, or who was punished to repeat forever the same meaningless task of pushing a boulder up the mountain and just to see it falling it back again. ठीक है, आप slopy mountain में अगर आप एक boulder or एक you can say the big stone, if you just roll up to actually settle it, it will not settle it, because आप जैसे ही ऊपर उसको ऊपर ले जाओगे, again it will come down, you will practice again it will come down. So your task is totally meaningless and your life is devoid of meaning and you are doing a useless task. So that kind of a situation has been portrayed in most of his works. Fine. Okay, next is the outsider or the stranger. Now this is a very important work. इससे आपके questions आते हैं. So please remember here it deals with the character named as Mursault. Okay, Mursault is the name of the character, and the opening scene says that his mother died. Okay, and he said, if you'll ask that person, when did your mother die? He said, mother died yesterday or day before yesterday. He even didn't remember when his mother died. Okay, so that kind of absurdity has been shown with the help of the character Mursault, and he attended his mother's funeral, and a few days later he actually killed an Arab because he thought that his sun is too hot. Okay, sun is too hot, so he killed an Arab. Okay, and in French, who was actually involved in conflict with the French. So this kind of absurdity was shown with the help of the character Mursault, and Mursault is tried and sentenced to death, and later on in the this work. Okay, so this was all about the stranger or the outsider. Next is the play. Now this is a story of the town of Oran. कहाँ set है story? This story has been set in Oran, and in what happens in this story are thousands of rats, okay, unnoticed by the population, or you can say the populace of that particular city, begins to die in the streets, and hysteria develops among the people that what will be the aftermath after this situation. And you can see the local newspaper and the reporters start reporting this incident, and authorities of Oran started responding to the public pressure, ordered the collection and recreation or the cremation of the rats. So kind of a pressure has been built, and they were unaware of the collection, and they were unaware of the condition, and this particular kind of a unawareness added as a catalyst for the spread of more bubonic plague. Okay, so they didn't know how to control the situation, and a kind of a pressure was built with them. They don't know what to do or what was the action to be followed, and because of this unawareness there was a spread of bubonic plague in Oran, and that's why the name simplifies with that particular bubonic plague, that is the plague. Is it clear? Okay, next is Harold Pinter. Now this is again a very important writer, Harold Pinter, and I told you that Pinterest was a work that has been associated with Harold Pinter. Okay, just a second. Okay, so now the Harold Pinter has written some works, and he was a Nobel Prize winning English playwright and a screenwriter, director and an actor as well, and one of the most influential modern British dramatists. His writing career you can say that expanded over 50 years, and he is known for the best plays like The Birthday Party, The Homecoming and The Betrayal, and all these works have been adopted for screenplays. And his work the caretaker has his work, The Betrayal, has been taken as a memory play. Okay, it has been taken as a memory play. Okay, it has been taken as a memory play. And please remember that Harold Pinter has been associated with Comedy of Menace. And what is Comedy of Menace? The comedy before the tragedy. Okay, so जैसे हम when I'm about to shoot you and before that I ask you to sing a song. Okay, so that kind of a comedy before the sudden tragedy is a kind of a comedy known as Comedy of Menace. And who has originated the term Comedy of Menace? Okay, so it was David Campton. डेविड कैम्पटन ने एक बुक लिखा था द ल्यूनेटिक व्यू. Okay, so David Campton has written a work, Lunatic View, a comedy of Menace, and this work is responsible for responsible for originating the term the comedy of Menace. And who has picked this term the comedy of Menace? That is Irving Wardle. Irving Wardle is a person who has originated the term the comedy of Menace, and he has picked this term from the work of David Campton, who is again a writer of Comedy of Menace. He has written the work The Lunatic View, a comedy of Menace, and the subtitle of this work has been adopted as a title for the moment, the Comedy of Menace. And Harold Pinter is also associated with Comedy of Menace. Fine. Now the birthday party is about Stanley Weber. Okay, there was a character called Stanley Weber, and he was a piano player in his 30s. Okay, and what happens? There were the two strangers that visits Stanley, Goldberg and Macon, who arrived to on his birthday and who appear to have come looking for him. Turned Stanley apparently very innocuous, mad, and his birthday parties turned into a disaster or a nightmare. So this was a story about the birthday party. Next is let me discuss about Caretaker. Now the Caretaker is a play based on you can say that the interaction of three characters. And who were these three characters? The Davis brothers, Adam and Mick. Okay, so there was a tramp, Davis brothers, Aston and Mick. So what happened? Aston made Davis the caretaker of his room, who tries to create fights between the two brothers. Okay, so there was a person Davis and the two brothers named Aston and Mick, and Davis was responsible for creating the rift between the two brothers, that is Aston and Mick. Is it clear? Okay, so please like the session. Now, last writer, Eugene Ionesco, again a very important writer, and you should remember that he was a Romanian French playwright. Okay, he was a Romanian French playwright, and he was one of the most foremost figures of the French avant-garde theatre. And he has written the works like The Chair, Killer, Rhinoceros and Macbeth. Now the Chair is a very interesting play by Eugene Ionesco, and he is an absurd writer, and again this work, The Chair, is an absurdist tragic farce play by Eugene Ionesco. Okay, and the play concerns with the two characters. And who were these two characters? Old man and old woman, who was frantically preparing chairs for a, you can say, a series of invited guests to that particular party, who are coming to hear a orator reveal the old man's discovery. Now the guests supposedly include everyone. Okay, we don't know who were the guests. The guest name was everyone. We don't know who are this everyone, implying that everyone in the world. And the invisibility of the guest is again the kind of a absurdity, or that implies that the old woman and the old women man are the last two people on this planet. Okay, so there were chairs laid for the guests, and nobody was sitting on this chair. And if you ask them who were the invited guests, they said everyone. Okay, and this kind of empty chairs reveal that maybe the old woman and the old man are the last two people living on this planet. And towards the end, the old couple commits suicide by throwing themselves out of the window into the ocean. Okay, so this kind of absurdity was there in the play The Chair. So please remember who were the two characters, old man and old woman. Okay, these were the two characters of this work. Now next is the killer. Now the killer, here the famous character of Eugene Ionesco play, that is Berenger, is a part of this particular work, The Killer. Okay, and this Berenger has been identified as Eugene Ionesco's downtrodden everyman who discovers an ideal radiant city. Now he soon discovered that the city is host to a killer who drowns the victim in a pool after luring them by, offering to show them a picture of the colonel. Okay, so this killer lures the people, that is everyman, and he then used to drown them. Okay, and please remember it has the character Berenger in that, who is a downtrodden everyman in Eugene Ionesco's plays. Okay, next is Rhinoceros. Again, this Rhinoceros is a very important work, and it is actually, set in a small provincial French town of which has been turned into rhinoceros, and ultimately the only human who does not succumb to his mass metamorphosis is the central character Berenger. So everyone was turned into rhinoceros in that particular town, but who has not turned into rhinoceros, that is Berenger, who is an everyman, downtrodden everyman figure of Eugene Ionesco's work. Fine. So please remember the rhinoceros will be Berenger is the character. Now the last work is Macbeth. Now Macbeth, as the name suggests, it is kind of remounts the Shakespeare Macbeth into a comic tale of ambition and corruption. So it is a kind of a comic tale. Okay, it is a kind of a comic tale of ambition and corruption. And please remember, in this there are the two generals are there, Macbeth and Banquo, put down a rebellion, and payment for their heroic services, Archduke Duncan promises to bestow on them lands, cash, victuals, and then renegates to the death. Now, then he was encouraged by the seductive Lady Duncan, and Macbeth's plot to assassinate the Archduke and crown himself as the king so that he can have Lady Duncan as his wife. And when he executes his plan of killing Archduke, when he got married to Lady Duncan, he realized that Lady Duncan is not as beautiful as he considered her to be. Okay, just beauty ko dekh ke he has killed Archduke. Just that was the beauty of this Lady Duncan was so enticing that it actually excited the Macbeth to kill Archduke to become the husband or the king of Lady Duncan. Ultimately realized that Lady Duncan is not as beautiful as he has considered her or she seems to be. So this was a kind of a plot of Macbeth, and please remember that Macbeth is a reworking or remolding of the Shakespeare play Macbeth. Okay, so this was all about the theatre of absurd. I hope you have understood the theatre of absurd concept. Who was the first one to originate the absurdism? Who were the writers associated with absurd theatres? What are the different kind of absurdity has been portrayed, or what was the take on absurd situation by different writers of the absurd theatres? And I have discussed about them, their nationality and the important works. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed this lecture. Please like the session if you like the lecture, if you enjoyed the lecture and you learned a lot of substance from this particular lecture. Okay, and please comment your views about the session on the comment box, and please subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the 1 p.m. session, because I have brought some very frequently asked concepts of of literature in the UGC NET exam. So based upon whatever we have studied till now, starting from British literature to the European literature, all the questions are based on that concept. Okay, so please stay tuned for 1 p.m. session, because I have brought a lot of theories associated to that question, and I will be explaining everything in a great detail. Okay, so I hope you will stay tuned, and please note that it is not 1 p.m. session, it is 12:30 p.m. session. Okay, so the time has changed for the mock test series. It is not 1 p.m., it is 12:30 p.m. so please stay tuned for the 12:30 p.m. session. Okay, I hope you are your studies are going well and you are taking good care of yourself, and take care and goodbye. Yes, thank you, Devendra.